Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Ali Reza. Today we will talk about another one of those words, IDE. Now this is another one of those words that you will hear over and over. What is an IDE? It stands for Integrated Development Environment. Mouthful words, but it only means one thing. It's a piece of software that lets you write your own code in it. IntelliJ, for example. IntelliJ IDEA is an IDE. So this application is an IDE. As you see, it lets me write my own code in, for example, this time Java, and it will compile and build my project and give me the final result. And this is an IDE. Now, IDEs differ from one to another one on their looks. So it looks like this. If I open Visual Studio, as you can see, it's completely different. Provided this is an empty Visual Studio without any project loaded, and this is IDEA with a project loaded. However, as you see, the icons, the placements, everything looks different from one IDE to another IDE. The thing is that their functionality is almost identical. They have a window to see your own classes, your own project. In Visual Studio, it's called Solution Explorer. In IDEA, for example, it's called Project, and it's a tab here. They have they have a space here that you can open your code. For example, I don't know, let's take a look at this one. So you can open your code and start writing your code here. And Visual Studio is providing it, and it's sitting on this pitch black top left section right now because I don't have any code open right now, so you can't see. They have different menus to do different stuff. For example, to build your project. Now, Visual Studio has the build on top. Of course, you don't see it because, well, no project, no build option, but it's on top there. You can run a task in Visual Studio like so, and in IDEA you have the same play button here, side by side, the task drop-down menu. So on the surface, they look different, but their functionality are really close to each other. However, they differ based on the language that you're programming, because for example, in Visual Studio, if you are writing in C#, you don't have anything called Gradle. And Gradle is dedicated for Java. It's a compiler for Java. In Visual Studio C#, you have .NET, and .NET is sitting behind the scenes, so you don't see anything like Gradle or .NET or anything like that in here, okay? But as you see, you have Git for GitHub or source control. You have Git for GitHub and source control. So things are close to each other, but different from language to language. However, let's answer one simple question. How many IDEs we have out there? I don't know. I didn't count it. There are a lot of IDEs out there because, as I said, they are a piece of software that lets you write your own code. Hell, even Notepad++, that is one notepad, an advanced notepad to write text, can understand languages like C#, C++, Java, JSON, JavaScript, and maybe Ruby, maybe Python, PHP, Perl, Pascal. So it's just like Windows Notepad, just a little bit more advanced, but it still can understand the language of the code, so it has syntax highlighting, stuff like that. It doesn't have compiler though, so you can't run a C++ code from here, but you can definitely write your code in here. So the more known IDEs for C#, we have three well-known IDEs. The oldest one is Visual Studio, as you saw right now. It's this guy. After that, from the same community that gave us Visual Studio, the same developers, gave us Visual Studio Code. It's smaller, it's lighter, some people use it. And from JetBrains, we have Rider. Now, depending on your project, you may want to use one of these three. However, if you are going to use Visual Studio Code, I highly suggest to take a look at Rider, provided Visual Studio Code is free, Rider is not. Right now, Rider doesn't have any community edition, so it's not free. The choice is between paid and free application here. If you are going to develop something heavy like a Windows Form application, WPF application, or maybe a Razor website, then you would definitely want to look into Visual Studio itself. And yes, it has a community edition. So these two have community edition and free versions. Rider does not. For Java, however, things are a little bit more friendly. For Java, we have Eclipse that is older and many people are using it, but we have IDEA. It's from the same company that gives you Rider and the same company that gives you ReSharper for Visual Studio. So IDEA is a little bit newer than Eclipse, but in my opinion, it's a much better IDE for Java. And yes, it has a community edition, so you can use the free version there. For Python, things are a little bit more interesting. The same developer, JetBrains, that gave you Rider, that gives you IDEA, has an interface for Python, an IDE for Python. I forgot its name, okay? But it has something there. However, many people don't use it. They prefer different things for Python. And they may prefer something like Sublime. That's only a text editor, believe it or not. And as you saw, Notepad++. Or they work with some interpreters, because remember, Python is interpreted, not compiled. Some interpreters that are dedicated for Python, and we will take a look at them later whenever I start talking about Python. Okay, so we have things there for each one of these languages based on your personal taste, and being it free or paid, you may want to choose something. Just go and look at the Google and search for the names, compare them. There are good articles that compare each one of these IDEs to each other, pros, cons, abilities, how heavy they are, how small they are, how good they do their job, or how bad they are. So you can read about them and then make a decision. Personally, my personal preference, except from Python, because Python, I use it in a very dedicated manner, and it's for machine learning. So let's leave the Python alone for time being. If I'm going to use something for C#, I don't use VS Code. So either I'm doing a programming for Windows applications, or I don't know, WPF desktop application, then my choice is Visual Studio itself. Or I'm programming for Unity, then my choice is Rider, because Visual Studio is a little bit heavy. When I open Visual Studio, it takes up to 1 minute for me to get my Visual Studio up and running, but Rider is much faster. So whenever I'm working with Unity, my choice is Rider. Then I work for Java. If I want to program Java, I totally ignore Eclipse and I only work with IDEA. So these are my choices. And as I said, Python is his own can of worms. I don't want to open it right now. Now, if you are going to pay for an IDE, Rider is really worth it, I'm telling you. But again, if you are working with form applications, being it Windows Form, WPF, ASP.NET, Razor, things like that, then you want to work with Visual Studio, and yes, it has a community edition, so don't worry about paying it from the start. Choose your IDEs and listen very carefully. Put time reading about different IDEs and choose it very carefully, because when you got used to one of these, moving to the next one is not easy. Honestly, it took me some time to understand how IDEA is working, because I was a Visual Studio user and I still am not totally familiar with all the abilities in IDEA or even Rider. I'm a Visual Studio user, an old Visual Studio user, so I'm struggling to understand how different things on IDEA is working or in JetBrains Rider. I'm getting there, but it's a slow process. So if you want to choose your IDE, be careful which IDE are you choosing. Choose it smartly and have an easier time developing your application in future. Have fun, everyone. Goodbye.